Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Draft. The County Championship returns for its final knockings of the 2025 summer. We've got 3 rounds to go. The white ball cricket is nearly over. And hey, who would have backed the Steelbacks against Surrey, Dan?
Well, I know we did speak about this in our last preview that I felt that I didn't want to bring in any Northants players because they were the biggest underdogs in the quarterfinals. And look who has egg on his face now and who has a big smile on his face, Mr. Steelbacks himself.
Yeah, we might have got that one wrong, Dan. But hey, we're allowed to. Anyway, welcome back. If you are new here, subscribe to the channel. We are getting nearer, edging our way nearer to 1,000 subscribers. We just need a few little tickles through the slipcord, and then we'll get there. We'll get there a little bit quicker. So if you haven't subscribed and you're enjoying this, please do. It doesn't cost you anything to do so, and helps us keep making this content for you going into the winter and looking ahead to 2026. So again, hit that little subscribe button. It will help us out. And finally as well, just a big thank you to the sponsor of this week's show, Neon Cricket. If you want to stand out from the crowd, hey, look no further. Jump on their website. The link can be found in the description of this video. And you can check out their bat range and loads of other great kit. Dan, let's have a look at this game week 1 to 12 dream team. This is overall for the season so far. So there could be a little bit of inspiration for you for your teams going forward. But we open the batting. Well, we don't open the batting. You have 3 batters of Dan Lawrence, Ben Compton, and Hasib Hamid, all absolutely churning runs out. Dan Lawrence offering a little bit of part-time spin, which might have come into the equation for him. Rayan Ahmed, Ed Barnard, Safe Zabe, and friend of the show and friend of Dan Weston's team, George Hill, making up those all-rounders. Maybe people wouldn't have had those 4 as their top all-rounder picks at the start of the year, Dan.
Yeah, I think Ed Barnard might have been a popular choice among owners, and he's been a mainstay of my team in the Dukes rounds. I was a little less confident ahead of Kookaburra, but actually I was probably proven wrong a little bit, and he's done absolutely fine in Kookaburra rounds. And George Hill, as you say, friend of my team, early pick from me, and he's kept his place in throughout. And I mean, points per million, there's not much better value than George Hill right now in the championship. Yeah, really pleased with his impact. And 2 other players, Rayan Ahmed and Safe Zabe, guys who I know actually as well. And good guys. I'm really pleased for them that they've had good seasons as well. And both now bowling a lot more than they did probably at the start of the season, which is positive both for their careers but also for TCD players as well who have got them in their team.
Absolutely. No James Coles, though, who will be joining us later in this episode. So maybe he'll have a few points to pick up in the final 3 rounds to get himself onto that dream team. John Simpson takes the gloves, and the 3 bowlers, Calvin Harrison, who had that loan spell with Northamptonshire, Tom Taylor over at Worcestershire, and then Kyle Abbott as well, who scored points in every game other than the one that Dan Weston picked him.
Yeah, I actually had him. I kept him in the team though. I had him as captain last game week, and I mean, he did okay. He got 202 with the double with the captain's armband, so 101 in reality. Wish I'd just given it to George Hill instead. Should have just stuck to what works. And George got 263 points for me, which would have been double to 526. So it would have been a nice little boost for me if I'd have done that.
Well, if you'd have done that, you'd have got yourself a little bit closer on our little leaderboard, Dan, as well. We won't go into the main one just yet. We'll talk about the important one first. I'm currently sat on 19,496 points for the county championship. 3 rounds to go. You did make some ground on me last week by about 500 points, but you're on 18,197. So I've got 1,350 or so points to play with over the next 3 weeks. It's not impossible, is all I'm saying. It's not impossible, Dan.
Well, I've got a stat, some numbers which will make you quiver as the league leader. 1,300 points ahead, did you say? Well,
I think it's around that. Yeah.
I picked up about 500 points on the last game week. We've got 3 game weeks to go. I reckon if I do that every week, I might just pip you at the post. We'll see.
You could have a 200-point lead at the end of it. You never know. So, the current leaderboard for the cricket draft overall. is led by Ben Sanders and the Yorkshire Puddings with 22,097 points. Sancho's Otters and Andrew Douglas comes in at second place, 21,450. So, 600 points between the two of them? Kabir, Rory and George rounding out the top 5 in the cricket draft. Let us know. Let us know how your team is going. Let us know how you're comparing to our team as well. As I say, myself, 19,496. Dan Weston, 18,197. Let us know whether you're doing better. Let us know whether you're doing worse. Let us know if you're trying to catch us up. Let us know if we can catch you up. We want to hear from you. We want to compare yourself to the expert Dan Weston and the bloke who just hosts this show, me. So if you'd like to do that, that's the place to go. And how about looking back at game week 12, Dan? It feels like an absolute age ago that we last played Championship cricket. It was with a Kookaburra as well. So, but how's your team looking? How did it perform? How is it made up? Is it made up well to look ahead to game week 13? What's the crack on your side?
Yeah, so almost 1,500 for the week, which was about 350 more than the game week average. So I can't complain too much that I actually improved about 50 points in the overall, 50 places I should say, in the overall standings. I had big contributions from George Hill, Matt Critchley, James Rue, which created the bulk of that point scoring. They managed about 800 between the three of them, and then just sort of some solid contributions everywhere else. Yeah, I just feel like it's a bit of a season of what might have been really for me for this year, and Simon Harmer's absence at very short notice was another example of that. So I ended up with a very expensive 10-man squad because I couldn't replace Harmer in time. I was frantically trying to do it, and the transfer window slammed shut just as I was pressing submit. So the rules are harsh, and I was a victim of them. So not ideal. In terms of next week, or the upcoming game week, I should say, I think I've got full availability in all likelihood. Yeah, I might look at the weather, which I think we're going to come on to at some point in the discussions, and that might have an effect on my squad. But I should be absolutely fine with the 2 free transfers.
Yeah, good news. Good news. If I remember rightly, and I try not to think too much about poor weather in the UK because it happens quite a lot, but I think that last round was quite weather affected, wasn't it? Was it Middlesex and Gloucester never really got on down at Cheltenham throughout the 4 days, and there were days lost all around the country. If my memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of... Go on, sorry.
That's always a problem, isn't it, for the owners of players in those rain-affected games, is factors really you can't control or have a limited influence on.
Exactly, and changing balls, changing weather conditions. I mean, do we start moving away from those guys that are scoring the runs and maybe look for those lads that are going to start taking some of these wickets? Not sure. I mean, I'm without Tilak Varma, I'm without Chris Green, both whose contracts and stints are done now with the Championship. Chris Green in the CPL, which we'll talk about, and Tilak Varma, his contract with Hampshire, done and dusted. I was, again, a victim of Simon Harmer, like yourself. I had a very small contribution from Wayne Madsen, had a very small contribution from James Bracey, had a very small contribution from Save Zabe as well. James Coles, who will join us again, he didn't quite hit the heights that we were expecting, but they just didn't really get the time on the field, did we? Or did they, that we were hoping for? So it will be interesting to see the weather forecast. It will be interesting to see what the squads look like going into this game 13 of the county championship. We've got some England players that are missing that we'll talk about in a minute. We are getting towards the business end of the championship, though, and whether this has any kind of impacts as to who you pick, I'm not quite sure whether it would, Dan, or not, but I'll just give you a quick kind of oversight of the 2 divisions before I kind of throw that question back over to you. Surrey sit top of Division 1 with Nottinghamshire, they're 9 points behind. Somerset probably out of it now, 26 points behind Surrey, but you never say never. Don't see Surrey dropping 26 points over the next 3 games. Durham and Warwickshire, wow, they are a long way adrift, aren't they? 89 points at the bottom of Division 1. Durham 140.
Worcestershire, not Warwickshire.
Worcestershire, I apologise. Worcestershire on 89 points. Durham on 114 with a bit of a gap up to Essex on 126. So Worcestershire not looking too good there. Leicestershire top of the table by a distance in Division 2 with Glamorgan the nearest competitors on 165 points. There will be some competition from Derbyshire, but again, they've got a little bit to catch up on. And Kent, bottom of the league on 97. Obviously, no relegation from Division 2. With the positions of those counties, Dan, does that give you any kind of thoughts with regards to picking any players or avoiding players, or is it irrelevant to individual performances? How do you look at that information?
Well, the thing with the current structure of the Championship is that there's a lot of games towards the end of the season which may lack a little bit of jeopardy, or teams, they can't go up, they can't go down, they can't win the league, whatever it might be. The sort of reluctance to use the phrase "dead rubbers," but it is kind of a bit like that, and the decisions that teams make with selection, I think, might be influenced here. So, for example, if you're in Division 1 and you say you're Hampshire, you're 129 points, you're 46 points off the top, you're 40 points above the bottom place team. Maybe you're not quite safe yet in terms of the 15 points ahead of Durham, but if you can get a good result in this game week, their 12th match was game week 13, you might look at some younger players with a view to the future in the last couple of games. And this is the stuff that I'm definitely going to be scouring the squads of the county teams over these last few game weeks to see if there are any scenarios where actually they're going to give opportunities to younger players who can come in at a nice cheap price point. But also, you might want to make sure that your established player is costing you 8+ million is getting picked as well. So yeah, a lot to think about there probably.
Yeah, so potentially having those alarms set for the early mornings to make sure that you do actually get chance to use them up. But you mentioned the transfers and the penalties as well. You get 2 free transfers for this round, and then 3 penalties if you need them. 75 points feels like a lot when you say it out loud, but actually in this Championship format of the cricket draft, it doesn't take a huge amount to get rid of 75 points as a deficit. Yes, maybe 225 points, 225 if you use all 3, but the 75 isn't actually too bad with 4 innings going on, particularly if you're going to try and bring in an all-rounder with a high match involvement. We did a bit of work, didn't we, at the start of the year, and it was quite a surprising number actually as to how many players that we both picked had scored over 75 points.
Yeah, I think the majority of our squads over the comp majority of our players in squads over the comp in the first team would have scored over 75 points in the game week. I reckon we're looking at probably something like 70-75% as a figure, which makes me think that penalty transfers are definitely worth it if you can't create an 11 that's all going to play. If say that you've got 8 players, you've done your 2 free transfers, you still only got 8 players who are in the squads for the next game week, you definitely would want to look at using 3 penalty transfers minus 225, but then you're going to make that up more than likely, plus more with the performances from those extra 3 players. I think where it comes to becoming a lot more contentious, it would be if you're using a penalty transfer to replace someone else who's already going to play, because then you have to replace their actual points with the extra 75 as well, and that's where it starts to become less of a viable proposition.
Yeah, see, thinking man's cricket draft player, Dan Weston, that's what you are. Things you might have missed that you could have forgotten about, and I don't necessarily know how all of them are strictly relevant now with the change of balls. But from the last round in game week 12, Leicestershire used 10 bowlers against Kent, including Sol Budinger, who bowled 8 overs in that game. Rob Keogh batted 8 for Northants. I think that's probably where he'll be carded for the remainder of the season for Northamptonshire. He scored 125 in a 200-run partnership with Justin Broad, who also scored 171 in that game, that last game. Ethan Bamber scored 107. That's his second ridiculous innings of the summer, isn't it? He played that beautiful cameo to win that game earlier on in the summer, but it surpassed his career best of 46 not out up to 107. So at least that should only be one career best round for Ethan Bamber in the next couple of weeks, you'd have thought. James Rew and Tom Abel, they put on a 313-run partnership, both scoring 150 plus, and there were 22 hundreds scored in game week 12. If I was to press you right now, Dan, 22 hundreds in game week 12, how many hundreds are going to be scored in game week 13?
Ooh, I'm going to go much lower. There's rain around for the second 2 days of the week, so that's going to constrain innings as well. Been rain recently. I'm going to go, I'll say about 8 to 10, but I'll go 9 just to be safe.
Oof. That's a big downgrade. How about a player pick from game week 12, Dan? Have you got one, or have you already kind of covered that off?
Well, I'm going to reinforce what I said earlier, and that was the Simon Harmer disaster scenario.
Yeah.
And actually, it was a disaster as well, because I think it got to 10:58 before the Essex team was announced, because there was a late toss because of the a little bit of weather that needed to be cleared up. So literally, there was no time to try and organise a replacement realistically. And again, these are the vagaries of the cricket draft ownership and the teams announcing the candidates announcing their teams on time.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I'd have to agree with you on the Simon Harmer situation. I mentioned a few of the other batters that didn't really do a great deal or didn't get a chance to get on the field. My standout was Chris Green for Lancashire, who during those Kookaburra rounds in the Championship was an absolute diamond of a pick, wasn't he, really? High match involvement, batted at number 7, scored runs, took wickets. You couldn't really have asked for much more as a finger-spinning all-rounder in the Kookaburra rounds of cricket. But, as I said, he's enjoying time in Barbados. He won't be spending much time in Manchester throughout the rest of the year. Overseas news for game week 13 of the County Championship. Well, these are the players that we know are sticking around. We've got Dean Elgar and Simon Harmer. Both will still be available for Essex. David Beddingham up at Durham is available. Mohammed Abbas at Nott. Cam Bancroft at Gloucestershire. Marcus Harris at Lancashire. Kyle Abbott, obviously, on the south coast at Hampshire. Colin Ingram over at Glamorgan. And Shan Masood has continued his stint with Leicestershire for the back end of the County Championship. Caleb Jewell is available for game week 13 of the County Championship for Derbyshire. However, they have confirmed that he will return to Australia at the end of this week. So he won't be available for game week 14 or 15. Some new faces, some new signings if you're interested. Yanadkat has returned for Sussex. Doug Bracewell has also signed for Essex. And Mayank Agrawal has signed for Yorkshire for the final 3 rounds. And finally, we've had some confirmation of some departures. Yuzvendra Chahal won't be available for the final 3 games for Northamptonshire. And Pete Hanscom has returned to Australia following his stint at Leicestershire. Are there players there? Caleb Jewell, Dan, I think if you've had him throughout the course of the year, you've done incredibly well as an overseas pick.
Yeah, I had him at stages, but there were the stages where he didn't score runs. So yeah, unluckily for me. Out of those players, look, I've already got Harmer, but I'm kind of reluctant to pick a spinner in a Dukes round where there's potentially weather around as well. So I might take him out and actually bring in Abbas, who I think would be much more suited to bowling in those conditions. So that's a potential for me. Otherwise, it's a bit like my Blast team, full of domestic stalwarts. Yeah, before we go into some of the players that could be available, let's talk about game week 13 then, Dan, and see if you want to share any kind of nuggets or insights as to what you might be looking at and what you might not be looking at. I'll go early. I'll get mine out of the way because mine will be a lot quicker and I will actually tell you what I've done so far, unlike yourself. So Tilak Varma, Chris Green, they're both not available. So they're my 2 free transfers that I've had to use up. And I've looked at Ollie Pope, obviously Surrey playing at the Oval, and he does quite well there. Weather affecting could be an issue, but hey, that's like sticking your finger in the wind and trying to figure something out, isn't it? It's not exactly the easiest thing to predict. And then Gus Atkinson as well, who I don't know is available yet for Surrey, but did play in that Blast quarterfinals, isn't in those white ball squads for England, so hopefully we'll play a bit of county championship cricket for Surrey at the back end of the season. I think he'll probably do incredibly well if he were to get on the field with Dukes in hand. My big issue is, and it comes in back to your point of, can you justify losing the points of a player and also spending 75 points in order to change your squad up? Because I currently have Liam Patterson-White, Saif Zabe, James Coles and Simon Harmer in my team. And I don't think, Dan, you need to be a cricket analyst to figure out what the consistent theme is between those 4 players. Yeah, and maybe some people who planned for this might have not had four spinners going into game week
Maybe,
13 each round. But
maybe.
how can I judge you when you're beating me hands down in the race to the title right now? And yeah, maybe a couple of -75s for you might help me narrow that gap even further.
That's what I'm reluctant to use. But what about you, Dan? Are there names that you are considering? Have you shortlisted anybody yet?
Not yet. I've actually got 15 players that I think are likely all to play in the
Okay.
game week in my squad. So it'll be a question of making sure that my bench has got good coverage for any skill sets. That make sure I've got one of each skill set that they can come in case someone doesn't get picked. And I'll probably leave out Harmer and bring in someone like Abbas, which may or may
Yeah.
not be Abbas, but then that way I can pair Abbott and Abbas together for the like the old Hampshire
Yeah.
days where
Good
they
old
wreaked
days.
havoc. And yeah, I might just make one or two small changes, but I don't see a lot of difference really.
Yeah, I think the bench strength's a very, very good point, isn't it? In order to set them up. I mean, I've got Ben Geddes who should play for Middlesex. I've got Asa Tribe who should play for Glamorgan and has been in some really good form as well.
Mm.
Josh Hull, been a bit in and out of that Leicestershire side, but you'd hope that if fit and available with the Dukes in hand, potentially will have a better time of it than what he's had during those Kookaburra rounds. And then Kai Smith as well, who seems to be taking a bit more of a prominent role for Warwickshire again, who started brilliantly, then got the gloves taken away from him and ended up batting 8 and not really doing a great deal. Seems to have a bit more, or it's had at least a better and bigger role in that last round. So bench strength could be key. And yes, Dan, I think it's fair to say that you have prepared your team better for these final kind of rounds than what I managed to do. I was greedy. I didn't get it right, but we could see Gus Atkinson, as I've mentioned, and we could see Zach Crawley back into the county championship sides, and I think they would be two phenomenal picks if you were able to afford them and able to bring them in to your sides as well. But you got a small matter of some England T20 cricket, which hopefully will be slightly more successful than the one-day international cricket that England have got going on at the minute. But a couple of players that are going to be missing from your championship sides. Obviously, the full squad is out there, but Rayan Ahmed and Liam Dawson both in that T20 side. And they are some pretty big boots to fill, Dan, for those that have those guys in their teams at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think it's really difficult to do it. Spin all-rounders, probably fairly thin on the ground. I've actually already got Matt Critchley in my team, so I feel like I'm well covered. If I want that one spinner, that's enough for me. So the Rayhan Ahmed and Liam Dawson being unavailable for this game week may well see an avalanche of owners selling them and investing in the likes of Critchley instead if they want that spin coverage. But maybe they might also invest in our guest coming up with James Coles.
Absolutely. What a great segue that is, Dan. Let's take a little break from recording and let's bring James Coles into this week's episode. Okay, delighted to be joined by Sussex all-rounder James Coles. James, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on the Cricket Draft. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
No, it's pleasure. Are you a cricket drafter?
I actually am. My family's
Yes.
we've got like a little thing going, but I haven't changed my team since the start of the season, so I actually haven't looked in a while, but hopefully I'm going all right.
Well, give James Coles the armband, mate, and you're doing pretty well. And I suspect that's probably what you did at the start of the year. And brilliantly, because you are a cricket drafter, it just opens up this interview perfectly. Who have you captained in your cricket draft side, if you can remember?
I reckon because I was pretty fixated on making sure I didn't have like a crossover, so I only like picked Div 2 players. I think I had Higo, Ryan Higgins. He's always a banker to get a load of points. So yeah, I think that was my man.
So a guy, Dan, that we spoke quite a lot about on the cricket draft. Maybe not done quite as well as. Oh no, it's a weird one actually with Ryan Higgins. He scored a hatful of points, but doesn't actually tend to make the dream team particularly often, Dan.
Yeah, maybe not quite hit the heights of last season where he was like the GOAT of the cricket draft, but still really solid season for him. And obviously he's one of your go-tos for that all-rounder spot, one of the 4 rounder spots.
And James, do you dabble across formats in the cricket draft as well, or are you strictly traditional red ball, or have you set up blast sides?
I think I'm a bit old-fashioned, so no, I've only done the Champo side. Yeah, I should have probably done the blast stuff, but missed that boat, unfortunately.
Well, I'd imagine being a professional cricketer through the summer is probably quite busy, and actually building fancy teams for your teammates and your mates probably isn't that high on your list of things to do. But obviously, unfortunately, Sussex didn't quite make the knockouts. But one final question on the fantasy side of things: with the teams that are left, which player of those remaining would you give the armband and would you bank on for the Blast campaign?
I mean, after Rav's knock the other night, I think you'd be silly to not go near him. That was pretty incredible. So, yeah, I think I'd be giving it in.
You would be silly, Dan, wouldn't you, to not go near them?
Well, you love a Northants player, Dan, so yeah, who am I to argue with that?
Anyway, James, about yourself, you've had a fantastic season. You've been in my team in the cricket draft for a lot of it. You're 11th overall in point scorers with 1,700 points. You'll realise quite quickly that actually we talk about kind of fictional cricket rather than real cricket and averaging 156 points per game. But obviously that translates to some incredible performances on the field as well. How have you felt your season has gone? How have you assessed it? What have you learned? What have been your challenges? What have been your successes?
I don't know. Like I look back at the start before the blast started, and I guess the Kookaburra rounds, which probably helped me out a decent amount this year. And I thought I was going quite slowly, and kind of didn't get off to the start I wanted. But then I guess it kind of just happened, kind of out of nowhere. During the blast, started the blast well, and then it kind of carried through, and luckily it translated into the Champo stuff.
So that leads quite nicely into the next question. It's obviously everybody watching this, I would imagine, has a fantastic idea of how the domestic structure works in the UK, but it's quite kind of stop-start, that the formats change quite frequently. And by the sounds of it, that change of format from 4-day cricket into the shorter format was a blessing for you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because last year that was probably the thing that I struggled with most, was going from red to white, back to red to white again. So I guess it's good to see that I can kind of cope with it now. So I feel like that's a good step in the right direction for the future. So hopefully I can continue to do that.
Dan, is there any analytical or spreadsheet data that kind of looks into those switching of codes and how players can deal with it, or those that struggle? Is there anything that you've got there?
Well, I'm sure a few badgers have done it, but I haven't gone that far. I've actually got work to do as well, you know. The difference in the formats is really, really tricky, obviously, for all players. You know, we've come straight from the 100 ending last weekend, and now it's 4 days starting on Monday. You know, like the polar opposites in terms of formats, and I think that's probably tough for the majority of players, whether they're batters or bowlers, in terms of their shot options as batters, and bowling in terms of lines and lengths that you want to bowl, and you know, whether you're in the team for one format and not for another format. You know, all these things rolled into one. I think it's just really, really tough. And if I had my say in the fixture planning and the structuring of formats, I would have it so that there was a much more clearly defined windows for each format, so that players can really specialise on their skills for those relevant formats at that right time.
What would be your preference, James?
I think, I do slightly agree. I think it would be nice to just have like the blast, then into Champo, but obviously just the structure of it kind of doesn't fit. But yeah, we'll see what comes out about next year. But because there's already been a reduction, I think, in the blast stuff, so maybe it might fit a bit better. But yeah, no, I do agree. I think it would help a lot of players out, and it would help those that only play one format from getting a bit muddled up and stuff. But, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. For yourself personally, with the bat, 890 runs this summer, 450s, 300s. Firstly, fantastic conversion rate. With regards to that, are you a goal setter? Is that something that you had kind of penciled down as things you wanted to? Obviously, yes, I wanted to score runs this summer is the easy answer to that question. But the volume of it, have you got your eye on 1,000 runs this summer? Are you a goal setter?
Yeah, no, I actually am. I think that's probably the one thing that I try and keep consistent every year. Just sit down, write out what I want to do this year, for the year ahead. Sorry, and yeah, this year I said I hadn't actually scored 100 away from home, so that was one of my targets. So I managed to tick that one off, and then my other target was to get 1,000 runs. So, well, fingers crossed that can happen in the next 3 games.
Yeah, you got a few innings to go as long as the weather stays away and stays fair, which by the looks of what we can see at the minute, it looks beautiful. Bowling as well, 160 overs in the tank for you this year. Did you always see yourself as an all-rounder, or did one of the disciplines come more naturally? Do you focus on one more than the other? What's that like behind the scenes?
Yeah, I'd always say I was probably an all-rounder growing up, but then I guess for Champo cricket I got pushed into being a bit more of a batter, and now I've kind of got the respect back with my bowling for that. So would like to think I'm an all-rounder now. But then white ball wise, probably always been an all-rounder. I think white ball bowling probably comes a bit more naturally to me than red ball bowling. Something that I really enjoy and would probably, yeah, no, I enjoy that a lot. But yeah, no, I think if I look at it honestly, that's probably my way to get to a higher level is through doing both. So yeah, working hard at them.
Fantastic, fantastic. We'll take you back in time a little bit. You made your Sussex debut at a young age, and that era of Sussex cricket that was a real kind of investment in youth, wasn't it? I think would be fair to say it was really kind of trying to inspire and develop that next generation. If I was to kind of get you to look back on that day, I mean, what were your emotions like? How well do you remember it? And then walking out on the field for the first time, it must have been incredibly special.
Yeah, it was a pretty special debut, getting to do it at the Oval, a ground that I grew up going to watch quite a lot with my parents. So yeah, that was pretty special for me. But it's quite a while ago now. It's already been 5 years and it's flown by. So yeah, it's quite sad in a sense, but no, looking back, it was an amazing feeling. I'm ever grateful for the opportunity.
And then in those 5 years, obviously you would have learned an awful lot across the different formats, the games that you've played, the experiences that you've had. If you could pass back to James Coles, who's just about to make that senior debut, or you're on that journey to being a pro, what would you pass back knowing what you know now?
I think that's a tricky one. I think trying to just figure out how I want to practice and like going into each training session with a proper purpose, rather than sometimes like it's very easy. I'm still struggle with it now, but like going to a training session and just hitting balls for the sake of it. But last year in the 100, working with Stephen Fleming, that was the one thing that stuck with me from him was he was very like straight with the fact that you could only train once if we had 2 days, and be like, come have a full purpose, make the most of it, and then go and then rest, rather than just coming and just doing it as a tick box, rather than actually coming with a full purpose for it.
Yeah, that seems to be a really consistent answer through professional cricketers, which I think anybody on that pathway, or anybody even in any level of cricket, I think can take quite a lot away from it. It's you kind of need to know what you're there for, don't you? There's a question here, James, that's coming in the questions, and I'm beautifully placed for it because I'm currently sat in Guyana working with the Caribbean Premier League, so I seem to be the perfect bloke to ask this question. But the question is have you got hopes and aspirations to be drafted by any of the global T20 leagues? Article was read that suggested that you opted for the England Lions when opportunities around the world were available. How do you see the next kind of 3 years going for you? What is your stance on it?
Yeah, I think so. Now I've done 2 seasons of the Lions. and they were amazing experiences. So I think I'm hopefully going to try and do a bit of franchise this year. Don't know what yet. I guess I'll find out in the next few weeks. But yeah, I'm in a few drafts, so we'll see what happens. But I think if you look at it, I think the way of kind of proving yourself to get to the next level, because I want to play for England. That's what I want to do. But I think the way I can prove that, like I'd like to think I've kind of justified it in county cricket now. But I think the way to stick your head above the parapet is by doing it against the best. And I think franchise cricket's probably the easiest way to show that. So yeah, I think that's my take on it now.
Yeah, Dan, you've seen both sides of the coin, haven't you? Is that something that players, and is the general kind of consensus?
Yeah, 100%. I think you really, players could go away and got so many opportunities in all these winter leagues now as well to go and put their name in lights and potentially accelerate their career really quite fast. And in the next few months you've got SA20, ILT20, both of them have got auctions really in the short term. I think in the next week or so, and obviously Big Bash as well, which had the overseas auction not so long ago, but also might look for some replacement players as well. So you've got some really good options there. Obviously leagues that pay well, but also put you in the shop window as well. And not just that, but like if you have a really good winter, like if you really tear it up, then it puts you in a great position for the IPL auction as well, which tends to take place in around sort of January, February time as well. So actually these winter leagues are all kind of scheduled to give maximum exposure to the players, and I think that it's a great way to accelerate career, like I said, and also to use that as a platform to get into the England setup potentially as well.
Well, good luck with them, James. Hopefully an exciting winter ahead for you. Let's just finish off and we'll get to know you a little bit better. Maybe we should have done these at the start to have got to know you, but we'll go for them now. Just quickly, who's been who's your biggest influence on you as a cricketer?
I think my parents have definitely. Well, they don't miss a game. It's funny. They come to watch pretty much all of my games, which is really nice. So it's just a bit of consistency, I guess. They've done some trips around the world, so that's lovely. And then my coach growing up, probably Alan Duncan. I still see him quite a lot now, as a familiar face, like someone to refer back to. Always watching online and he knows my game inside and out almost better than I do. So that's quite nice contact to have.
Does Joe Root overtake Sachin Tendulkar?
I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty inevitable, isn't it? And justified as well. He's unbelievable, isn't he?
He is absolutely superb. Who's your funniest teammate? John Simpson said Sean Hunt.
Did he? Interesting. I mean, Ollie Carter's is pretty funny. He comes out with some pretty stupid stuff, and it never fails to get a laugh out of the changing room.
Who's the worst dressed in the Sussex squad?
That's Simo. Awful. Awful gears.
He threw Harrison Ward under the bus when we had a chat with him earlier this year. Fortunately, you avoided that one. Best player you played with?
I think after this year's 100, I think Joff has taken that one. Watching him bowl was it was a joke, making some of these unbelievable players look really quite silly. It was really impressive to see.
From an amateur's perspective, he just looks terrifying.
Yeah, and that's what I stand at deep square where I was, and then he was bowling these 92-mile-an-hour bumpers, and then everyone was going to start ramping him, and then he just had this 65-mile-an-hour slow ball, and I was just like, it looks impossible.
That's a ridiculous change. Who's the best player you played against?
Oh, I actually think Prithvi Shaw, we played him in a 50-over game at Northants and a Champo game, and it was like nipping all over the place, and he was just playing these magnificent cover drives on the app, and ever since I've been in awe. It was so pure.
I was on commentary that day, James, And,
Oh, were ya?
That was I completely agree with you. That was one of the most ridiculous innings I've ever seen
Yeah.
before in my life.
Yeah.
Just
It wasn't massive. He only got like 30 odd, I think. But it
20
was
or
like,
30.
it was just, oh, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it.
The best 20 runs I reckon I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. I agree.
And then he scored a double hundred the week after.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
You avoided that one. You avoided
Yeah, I
that one.
did.
And how just finally as well. What's the best moment of your career so far?
I think the getting to the 100 finals probably up there, but I think just because it's like my team, I guess, with Sussex, probably the quarter final at home against Lancs that we won. That was a really nice day, I thought, and against a very good team, played really well. Yeah, that was a special day.
Fantastic. Well, James, thank you so much for joining us, folks. Thank you
No worries.
listening and watching all the way through. Dan, thank you for your time as always, and we'll have a catch up, Dan, after we've figured out the mistakes that we've made ahead of game week 13 in the cricket draft for the county championship, and hopefully James carries my team through another week.